free agency and the Redskins. Mr. Reed, I want to start with you. And you wrote a column about the Hatcher signing, but I want to talk about sort of free agency as a whole, the additions for the Redskins. What do you think what grade would you give them to date?
Right now, I'd probably say a C, for this reason. You know, when you're 3-13 and you finish last 6 out of 8 years, obviously you have a lot of holes to fill. And to me, the secondary was an area where they really needed to address. Now, the Hatcher signing, what their betting is, as bad as they've been defensively, what their betting is that Hatcher, who's an interior rush guy, or in a 3-4, he's going to be an end, is going to combine with Arakpo and Ryan Kerrigan to give you such a consistent pass rush that essentially it almost won't even matter who you have back there. I mean, it'll matter, but you know. So that, I mean, and if you have a formidable rush, clearly that's going to help you on the back end of your defense. My concern though is Hatcher's 32. Guy had never had more than 4.5 sacks before he had 11 last year. Guy, he's got agility, quickness, strength, all that. And 11 sacks from an interior rush position as a 4-3 lineman is incredible. But I just wonder, can this guy even do something close to that again? And they're betting $10.5 million essentially on a guy who's about to be 32 years old. That's the guarantee. He's going to get all that money this year. Combined with Arakpo, what they're saying is Arakpo's going to become an elite pass rusher because they're paying him almost $11.5 million because they tagged him. They still don't have a guy opposite Perry Riley. The guys who they've signed, you're taking a flyer on a guy.
Role players.
Well, you're hoping that you can buy low and one of these guys is going to step up. One of the guys is a core special teams guy. The other guy is a guy who was with the Texans. You just don't know. They've never been a proven successful full-time starter. So that's defensive. Offensive, they signed this guard from Cleveland. I've heard mixed things about him. They're negotiating with Penn, the tackle from Tampa Bay. Bottom line is anybody would be an upgrade over Columbus. And then, they signed the Roberts, the wide receiver. Maybe he helps. You bring back Tana, a veteran guy. Maybe he's got a little something left in the tank. My point is, when you have as many holes as they do, they didn't make an impact signing in the secondary. The impact signing on defense, Hatcher, 32 years old, you don't know. So I think their pass rush should be improved, but you don't know. Offensively, I still have a lot of questions. And at the end of the day, the biggest question, the biggest bump, and I know I got to hurry up here, is Robert going to be someone who takes a step forward in terms of being able to learn how to read defenses? Because really, all this other stuff is just window dressing. If he can't get it done as a drop back passer, which he's going to have to be, then they're starting all over in another couple of years. Anyway.
We're going to have plenty of time to talk about Griffin's offseason and his what he needs to work on this year. But LeVar, give me your grade. Would you agree with Jason on the C grade so far for the free agency?
I did give a C grade, and the reason why I gave a C grade was because it seems as though they have a confidence in the personnel that they have. So if they weren't a 3-win team, I could give them a higher grade for retaining the guys. I will commend them for signing guys that have been a part of this organization and bringing them back. But the reason why I would give a C is because it's a 3-win team, and your biggest signs came by keeping guys on roster, not in free agency. Hatcher, I think, is an improvement. I think he is an improvement and an upgrade. And I agree with Jay Reed. I think they believe that the same philosophy they had this year, which didn't work, but they felt as though if they could generate a pass rush, stop the run, that they wouldn't have to be as strong in the secondary. I don't subscribe to that. So I don't think that they've made their team better by a whole lot. I think Hatcher makes their defensive front better. I don't know that their secondary is better. Actually, I would assume that their secondary is not better at this moment in time. And so since you haven't improved a very key part of your defense and on offense, again, I think it's more about RG3 than it is anything else. If Roberts is the guy, he's the guy. But I just don't think they did anything that really improved this team or hurt it. So I give a C grade because that's right in the middle.
Dan, what grade do you give him?
C seems to be the popular grade. I mean, that both of their analyses seem sound to me. I think the one thing that you would always kind of be risky when you're talking about free agency is you don't know what a team's plans are in the draft, who they might be targeting. I think with the Redskins, obviously, it's not quite the same situation because they don't have that first-round pick, which, when you're such a bad team, would be a really high pick where you would assume you'd be getting a starter. But I think, like, with the linebacker position you're talking about, it's not inconceivable that they're taking a guy in the second round and thinking that guy is the starter as a rookie. So I think we have to see what they're going to do, and I would certainly imagine they're going to sign more guys before this whole thing wraps up. But as of right now, there do seem to be some holes. And Roberts, as much as they tout his potential and how he wasn't super, he's often a number 3 guy last year. He is not the kind of big name wide receiver that a lot of people thought they might be targeting.
What does, in the last 40 seconds that we have, guys, Jason, what they've done to date in free agency say about what they're going to go after for the draft, do you think?
Well, I think, as Steins mentioned, you're going to probably look for an inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to look for, they're probably going to draft a safety, I would imagine.
Got to be a wide receiver in there too, right?
Probably, I mean, those are areas that you still see. Look, they were 3 and 13. There
Right.
are a lot of areas they could go.
Do
you agree?
I would say you can't get a pulse on what it is that they're thinking to do, because it would just make a ton of sense to sign a safety immediately, and they did not.
Because well, you know why they didn't, and I know I got to wrap this up, because it's what you started off by saying. They have a lot of confidence in their people,
Well, there you
which
go.
to me, that's a questionable.
That's questionable, especially with a new coach.
3 and 13 confidence. All right. Well, we'll see. One of the things that there hasn't been a lot of continuity in the defense and the personnel over the years. We'll see if this changes
It's true.
things
Like
up.
bad continuity is also continuity.
That's
not,
true.